Right. Does anyone need me to do any one of those? Right. VIII on question 1.
Yeah.
Right, okay. So that would be (3i) plus minus 2 minus 4i. Okay, so basically you're just, when it's there's a plus outside the bracket, everything inside the bracket stays the same. So it's still a minus 2 and it's still a minus 4i. Is that okay? So you put the real bits together. There's only one real bit, okay? There's only minus 2. So the real bit is minus 2. And the imaginary bit is plus 3i, take away 4i. So plus 3, take away 4 would be minus 1i or minus I. Okay? That's your answer. Is that okay? Anyone need anything else done out of any of the ones I gave you?
X and IV on question 2.
X and IV on question 2. So I'll start with IV on question 2.
Yeah.
So 2IV, right, reads minus 3 minus 4i.
Could you move that a little bit?
I will. Oh yeah, no, what's wrong is it's magnified. Now, minus 3 minus 4i, right, okay, minus 3 minus 4i, where am I? This is minus 2 plus 6i. Okay, when there's a minus outside the bracket, it changes all the signs inside the bracket. So the first bracket is fine. Okay, the second bracket is, you have minus minus 2, which is a plus 2. So that 2 became a plus 2. And a minus by plus is a minus minus 6i. So effectively the signs changed. That was a minus 2, now it's a plus 2. That was a plus 6i, that was a minus 6i. And that's because there's a minus outside the bracket. Then you put your real bits together and your imagined bits together. So your real bits are minus 3 plus 2. So minus 3 plus 2 is minus 1. And your imaginary bits are minus 4i minus 6i. So you're at minus 4, you go down another 6, so you end up at minus 10i. Okay? And part X as well.
Yeah.
Right, okay. I'll route it out and I'll move it up. Okay, so part X is which one am I doing?
X.
Number 2?
Question 2. X.
Yeah. So it's X plus YI. That sounds like I'm on Geordie Shore. YI. Right? Okay. You probably don't know what that even is, do you?
Yeah.
It's alright, I don't watch it just in case you think I'm... Okay? Right, so this is, the first one just stays the same, X plus YI, and the second one is a minus into the bracket, so that means it changes all the signs inside. So now that becomes a minus P, and a minus by a minus is a plus QI. Okay, so you put the real bits together and the imaginary bits together. So the real bits is X minus P. How do you know they're real? They've no I's. Okay, and then you just write the imaginary bits beside each other. So plus YI plus QI. And you can leave your answer like that. In the book they would have written that as, they would have just written the I outside the bracket. Okay, something like that. Okay, but don't worry about that, okay, because that's, you're never going to be asked anything like that. Okay, is that alright? Okay, are we okay with the rest of them?
Yeah.
Right, okay, so I want to move on to multiplying complex numbers. Okay, so I'm going to doodle here for a bit, okay, to explain stuff, so don't write it. Okay, so you can write the heading, but the next few bits is just me explaining stuff, okay? Multiplying complex numbers. So just write the heading for the moment, then stop writing, you're just listening. Okay? So if I have the square root of 3 to be squared? What's the square root of 3 to be squared? You do it in your calculator. What's the answer? Square root of 3 to be squared? Three? Open a bracket, then put square root of 3, close the bracket, then put squared. The error shouldn't come up. Right, 3? Right, what's the square root of 5 to be squared? 5. What's the square root of 13 to be squared? 13. So basically, a square root, girls, and the square are the opposite of each other, so they cancel each other out. Okay? Now, you don't have to remember that because you can do it on your calculator. Okay, for those. Okay, so if I had the square root of minus 8 to be squared, what would that be? It'd be minus 8, wouldn't it? Just be minus 8. Is that alright? Because square root and square are the opposite of each other. What about the square root of minus 1 to be squared? What's the answer? What's the answer? Minus 1, isn't it? Right. But the square root of square root of minus 1, what is the square? What do we call this whole chapter? What do we call the square root of minus 1? We just call it I. So that's actually I squared there, isn't it? So I squared is minus 1. See that? That's really important. So you'll never, ever, ever, ever replace I. But when you see an I squared, what's I squared equal to? What do you replace I squared with? The number minus 1. So never replace I, because it's of no benefit, right? But always replace I squared. So you don't need to write any of that down. Okay. Looking at me. Right, all I needed to get out of that, girls, was, right, okay, that I squared is equal to what? I squared is equal to what? Minus 1. Now that's something you'll need to remember, okay? So I squared is minus 1. So you'll never replace I. So when you see an I, leave it as an I. Okay? Always replace I squared. Always replace I squared. What will you replace I squared with? Yeah, with minus 1. Now, you'll see why when you come on to multiply. Right? Okay. So now I'm multiplying complex numbers, so I'm just going to go straight to an example. So, example. If I want to multiply, example 1, if I want to multiply 2 plus 3i multiplied by 3 minus 2i. Okay? Okay, is that alright? Do you remember multiplying out brackets in algebra? Well, how do I do it? Yeah, split up the first bracket, write the second bracket down twice. Isn't that right? So I'll take the 2 and I'll multiply by the second bracket, which is 3 minus 2i. And I'll take the rest of the first bracket, which is plus 3i. Sorry, I'm going to... So then I'll take the rest of the first bracket, which is plus 3i, and I'll multiply it by the second bracket. Okay? So we learned how to multiply out brackets in algebra. Okay? So you split up the first bracket, 2 and the plus 3i, and you multiply each term by the second bracket. Okay? Now I multiply. So let's multiply. 2 by 3 is 6 minus 2 by 2i is 4i. Now multiply in by 3i. So 3i by 3 is what? 9i. Right? Plus by a minus is a minus. 3i by 2i. 6i squared, isn't that right? So 3 2s are 6 and I by I is I squared. Now this is where complex numbers is different to algebra, because why? The minute I see an I squared, what do I replace it with? Minus 1. So that's 6 minus 4i plus 9i. So instead of that I squared, it's going to disappear and be replaced with a minus 1. So it's minus 6 multiplied by minus 1. Is that okay? So that's 6 minus 4i plus 9i. Now what's this? A minus by a minus is a plus, and 6 multiplied by 1 is just 6. Then you put your real bits together and your imaginary bits together. So 6 plus 6 makes 12, and minus 4i plus 9i makes plus 5i, and that's your answer. Move it up, yeah. Okay. I'll do a second example now. If that passed you by, don't worry. Sorry. Sit down. Everyone? Yeah, okay. Right, so example 2. 3 plus 5i multiplied by 1 minus 2i. Is that okay? Right. How do you multiply? So, algebra, what do you do? Yeah, 3 multiplied by what? Keep going, Rachel. Multiplied by what?
Oh no, what's the number for the second bracket?
Yeah. 3 plus 5i, 1. Oh, sorry, that's a 1. Sorry. 1. So it's 3 multiplied by what?
1 minus 2.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone? Call out the next bit. Plus 5i multiplied by 1 minus 2i. Is that okay? Right. Multiply into the bracket. So what have we got? 3 minus 6i. Now I'm multiplying in by plus 5i, so I'm fine for signs. So what do I end up with? Plus 5i minus 5 by 2 is 10. I by I is I squared. Okay. When you're multiplying complex numbers, you'll always end up with an I squared. If you don't, you've gone wrong. Okay? So, you know, the minute you see an I squared, replace it with what? Minus 1. So 3 stays the same, minus 6i stays the same, plus 5i stays the same. And then instead of it being minus 10i squared, it's minus 10 multiplied by minus 1. Okay? So 3 stays the same, minus 6i is the same, plus 5i is the same. So a minus by a minus is a plus, and 10 by 1 is 10. So then you put your real bits together and your imaginary bits together. What's your real bits? 13. 3 plus 10 makes 13. What's your imaginary bits? Minus I, isn't it? Minus 1i. Right, so it'll be minus 6i. Minus 6 plus 5 would be minus 1i. Yeah, that's your answer. Is that okay? Right, I'll do another example. So the only difference to algebra here, girls, is the minute you see I squared, replace it with minus 1. Okay? So example 3. So I'm going to go with 2 minus 4i multiplied by 4 plus minus 3i. Okay? Is that alright? So that's what I'm asking you to do. So you split up the first bracket, write second bracket down twice. So what's my first line? 2 bracket 4 minus 3i. Next, minus 4i bracket 4 minus 3i. Okay? Multiply into your brackets then. So multiplying in by 2. So what will I end up with? 8 minus 6i. Now, just be careful here. Why am I saying be careful here?
It's a minus.
Because it's a minus. So minus 4i by plus 4 would be minus 16i. And then a minus by a minus is a plus. 4 by 3 is 12. And I by I is I squared. So I did everything separate there. I did the signs, then I did the numbers, then I did the letters. The minute you see an I squared, replace it with minus 1. So we've 8 minus 6i minus 16i plus 12 times minus 1. Okay? So that's 8 minus 6i minus 16i. A plus by a minus is a minus, 12 by 1 is 12. Then put your real bits together and your imaginary bits together. So real bits are 8, take away 12. What would that be? Minus 4. And imaginary bits are minus 6i minus 16i. No, minus 22i.
Why would it be a plus and it's minus?
Because, yeah, you're not multiplying them. You're just adding and subtracting them. You're not multiplying them. You only change the signs when you're multiplying. Okay? Right, one more example. So example 4. Yeah, sorry. Example 4. Um, 5 plus 2i all to be squared. Okay? So 5 plus 2i all to be squared. What does 5 plus 2i, what does anything to be squared means? It means multiply the number by itself, doesn't it? Okay, so 5 plus 2i to be squared is a short way of writing 5 plus 2i multiplied by what? 5 plus 2i. And then we're back to what we were doing there a minute ago. Okay? So just recognizing that a squared means multiplied by itself. So you take the first term, multiply it by the second bracket. Take the rest of the first bracket, which is plus 2i, multiplied by the second bracket, which is 5 plus 2i. Multiply, 5 by 5 is 25. 5 by 2i is 10i. I'm okay here. I'm multiplying in by a plus, so I don't need to worry about signs. Plus 2i by 5 is plus 10i. And plus 2i by plus 2i is plus 2 2s are 4, and I by I is I squared. So the minute you see an I squared, you replace it with a minus 1. So I have 25 plus 10i plus 10i plus 4 times minus 1. Okay, so that's 25 plus 10i plus 10i plus 4 by minus, a plus by a minus is a minus, 4 by 1 is 4. What are they doing upstairs? Right, 25, put the real bits together, 25 take away 4 is 21, and plus 10i and plus 10i is plus 20i. It's not home time, is it? No, it's not even near it, I'd say, is it? No, we have another 15 minutes. Right, okay, I don't know what they're doing. Right, okay, so I'm going to, that's the end of my example.